Welcome back to day number 11 of the daily challenge. And today I want to talk about some questions people asked because they saw some of the videos where I talked about, having those interesting, sometimes what may feel awkward or challenging conversations with your staff. What I will say to that, and I will reiterate what I said before, is you have to have these conversations with your staff. If you are not having these conversations, what I would say is your business is probably not going to move in the right direction. And one of the things that people have been guilty of is avoiding these because they don't want things to feel awkward. They don't want things to be contentious. And I completely get it because for so long as leaders, we haven't always been given the right tools to have those conversations in a healthy way. It's almost like, we see a person that is underperforming, or let's say there's a person who isn't doing what they should be doing, and we don't really know how to approach it. And part of that is we haven't been given the right tools to actually address it. Now, Lola and I did an entire podcast on this topic, which will be coming out next month. Or episode 5 is about that, is what do you do when your team is underperforming. But I wanted to give you a quick kind of snapshot of some of the things that we talked about, or how we use the golden age framework to really make those conversations less awkward and way more productive. Because the framework that I'm going to show you is it really helped our team go from us being kind of avoiding having these conversations to now the team actually is looking for these conversations to come up. Like the team is actually wanting these conversations to happen because we implemented the golden age framework and the way we used it to kind of move things along. And so I want to walk you through that. But to remind you a little bit of context, the way we came up with this was that, maybe about a couple of years ago when I was doing performance reviews with the staff and I let them rate themselves and then I gave them a rating, what I realized is everybody rated themselves a 5 out of 5, with 5 being the best, 1 being the worst performance. Everybody gave themselves a 5. And I realized, like, okay, all right, something's off here because I don't think you're a 5 in all of these areas. You might be a 5 in some of these areas, but not all of them. And what I realized is how they were grading their performance was completely different from how I was grading their performance. And I realized, okay, we have to do something to fix this. So I thought back on all the years of different leadership roles that I've been in and how all of this stuff came together. And we came up with the golden age framework to really help solve that issue. And then what we realize is the golden age framework can actually be applied to any part of the business. So today I'm going to focus and show you an example of how we use it to apply it to the performance of our staff. So let me just share my screen and I'll walk you through it. So here, what we're looking at here is a chart for our bookkeeper. So let's say, for us, we're an accounting firm. We do accounting, CFO, and data analytics for law firms. So we have bookkeepers on our team. So bookkeeping is one of the roles. One of the things that I realized is that we needed to go back and not only establish what the goals were, is we needed to paint a very clear picture for them on what average looks like, what good looks like, what excellent looks like. Because once we painted this picture, what it started to do is it started to fill in a lot of the gaps that we were seeing, because they were grading themselves on, let's say, how hard they felt like they were working. But how hard they felt like they were working wasn't always aligned to what the actual company's goals were. And so I had to step in and say, hey, here's the grading scale. Here is how we are going to rate what your performance is. Here's how we're going to rate what's going on in your role. And once we started to clarify this, it made it so much easier because we got on the same page. And here's the thing that we started to do is each month, every person on the team would know exactly, here's your scorecard of how we're going to grade you at the end of the month, because we're not waiting to the end of the year to do performance reviews. We do performance reviews on a monthly basis. And what we would do is every person has their own scorecard for their role. And what they would do is they would get their scorecard and they would fill out how they actually perform, because you don't necessarily need me to tell you how you perform. Like, you know how many clients you supported during the month. You know how I guess what your timing was on meeting your deadlines for getting the books closed. You know what your client services or your accuracy level was. Like, though, that type of stuff, you can calculate that on your own. And so what we would do is we would have each staff member fill out their own scorecard. So when we came to the meeting, we could have a productive conversation about, okay, where did you perform this month? Okay, let's say if in one area they were average in that area, then the question is, okay, all right, why do you think you fell in the average bucket this month for that category? And then the follow-up question is, hey, what help do you need to go from average to the next level of performance? How can I help you actually get to the next level in your performance? And when we started approaching the conversations this way, they became a lot less awkward and way more productive. Now, I will tell you, I am not one to shy away from a honest conversation or honest feedback, because if we start to see that there is a trend, let's say the person is below average, then we have a different type of conversation of saying, like, hey, here's the deal. We need to come up with a plan to at least get you to the baseline of average, and then we can work on these other things to get you to the next levels later. But if you don't get to average, this is not the right team for you. And I am not going to be shy about having that conversation. But it all starts with you being able to identify what their average, good, excellent kind of chart looks like, so that you have the necessary tools to have these type of healthy conversations. And you don't just have to do this, this isn't just for if you have bookkeepers. We also do it in our marketing team. We went through and we set out, like, what are the marketing goals? We set out what are the metrics? What is the scorecard going to look like for the marketing team? We also did it for the sales team. What does the sales targets need to look like? What are the metrics that we are going to measure? Because the thing is, these metrics align to the company's overall goal. Because by using all of these different formats and using these different layers of metrics, what we can do is we can make sure that everybody on the team is aligned to support the overall company's goals. And it did take some work for us to go through that process of setting what are the average, good, excellent, or what are the age goals for each person in the team, or for each role within the team. Like, we have bookkeepers, senior accountants, accounting managers, we have a finance director, we have a marketing communications, a marketing content manager, we have a content writer. So we had to go through every role on our team and we laid out what does average, good, and excellent look like. And then we can have conversations with them on a monthly basis to say, hey, here's where you fell this month, or here's where you scored this month on these categories. What do we need to do to help you get to the next level in this category? Or what do we need to do to help you get to the next level in this category? And if they are performing below average, we have a completely different conversation, but it doesn't become an awkward conversation because we have already made it very, very clear what the objectives are. Like, you already know beforehand, here is the scorecard. If you don't perform to this scorecard, then that means you aren't doing your job. And we need to have a completely different conversation, because this might not be the company that you need to be at. And when you use tools like this, or you use the Golden Age framework, what it does is it makes those kind of direct conversations a lot less awkward, and it makes it more productive, because a tool like this gives you the framework that you need and the tools you need to make these conversations way more productive. Plus, I will tell you, is we work with a lot of employment attorneys. We work with a lot of law firms. So I talk to employment law firms a lot. one of the issues that we've seen with a lot of people who end up getting, or employers who end up getting sued because of wrongful termination or something like that, a lot of times it comes down to documentation. Can you actually support the decision that you made? Now, when you make the criteria or you make the standards for the job very clear, and you have a scorecard that you can point to and you can say, hey, here's what this person's job entails. Here's the metrics, the performance criteria that we are measuring them on. And we can show this person consistently perform below average. You now have the support, which also does a great job at going a long way in helping you protect your company. So you want to make sure that as a business, if you're trying to manage performance, that you have healthy tools like this to help you have those conversations. And unfortunately, if you have to actually terminate an employee, you do want to have some support and some clarity to support your decision, which can lead to protection for you. Now, I will say is I am not your lawyer, so you cannot take this as direct legal advice because I'm not a lawyer. I am an accountant. So what you do want to do is have a conversation with an employment attorney if you have a employment issue to find out like exactly more what you need to do. But what I am saying is tools like this help point you in the right direction so that you can not only protect your business, but you can actually help your staff. Because even for the people on our team, like some of the staff members have been performing in the good area, and what they wanted was they wanted a little bit more clarity on, say, how can I be better? Well, this kind of laid it out for them. This told them, here's what you need to do to get to the next level of performance. And if you're using a tool like this, it can be very helpful in making your life a lot easier and your company a lot more productive.